All right. Thanks everybody for joining today. We're going to be talking about a new Avail product feature called Avail for AutoCAD and Civil 3D. We're going to be focused on block library management, and we've been working on actually pipe catalog management. So I'm going to walk you through where we stand with this. My name's Randall Stevens. Still work quite a bit on the product side, as well as trying to run the company, but I'm going to we got a mix of both existing customers, right, who this will be a new feature for, as well as people who aren't currently customers. So I'm going to give a brief overview of Avail. Ultimately, I want to give you a demo, so hang around. I'm going to talk about a concept we call harvest. We've done quite a bit of development of this the last few years on the Revit side, so we're trying to bring some of that knowledge and capability to the often overlooked AutoCAD and Civil 3D world. So we know that a lot of our customers have multidiscipline and lots more engineering firms that are using Avail. So we're trying to make sure that we are serving not just a Revit audience, but also the AutoCAD and Civil 3D as well. So I'll after we kind of run through those basics, I'll actually give you a demo of both AutoCAD, and there are some very special features that we have inside of Civil 3D. So I'll actually pop that up and show you what's going on there as well. All right. So in general, for those of you that are new to Avail, we really are kind of focused on several problems that we're trying to solve. One is when you look at content, is there a single source of truth for that content? So a lot of what firms rely on Avail for is to make sure that things are that people can find the resources, the assets that they need to use to get their work done every day. So that's one of the main goals, is that we become that single source of truth and make the content both browsable but also searchable, easy to find. And then, ultimately, the challenge within firms is that this information is voluminous. There's a lot of it, and it's growing all the time. So can we help to surface that? And it's not only the volume of content. You'll hear me talking a lot about content ends up in different places. So it can be different network locations. Now there's different sources of truth for all this information. And one of our goals with Avail is to try to bring all that back together and make it easy for the people at their desk doing the work every day in production to be able to put their hands on what they need to get the work done. And then ultimately, all of this is to help not only make it more efficient, but to reduce errors and omissions in the production workflow. So ultimately, the documentation that you're producing and all this, can we help to reduce the errors and omissions that are happening by having best practices with how this information is being organized, made available, used. So you'll see us continuing to work on improving that. We're lucky. The Avail's been around now since we launched the product in 2017, and we've got a lot of great customers who've supported us throughout this time. So some of the world's largest architecture and engineering firms, are using Avail to help manage these technical resources inside of their operations. So we couldn't do it without them. I'll talk a little bit about where the state of these products that we're releasing today are, because they're already available for our customers to test. So we usually go through a process, what we call preview release, where we put it in our customers' hands to get continued feedback and before it kind of is finally available in production. But for those of you that are new to Avail, I'm just going to a couple of screenshots here, and then we'll get into the actual software interface and demo. But we do a contest every year. We've done it, I think, the last 3 years, called Show Your Cards, and Avail is completely customizable. So we always like seeing what people have done with it, and a lot of times, like I said, in this end of the year contest that we do every year, a lot of people will share how they're using it and show screen grabs like this. But ultimately, we call these channels inside of Avail, but you can organize it to your own liking. Here's another example. I think this was one of our winners from this past year, large landscape architecture firm, and how they're using Avail to organize all of that material. The other thing that you'll find out about Avail or see hopefully in the product is literally a focus on the visuals. So, and we'll be talking about that today through this harvest process, how we do this and prepare this information. But we know that when these assets are being looked for, the visuals and being able to see them in high resolution before you brought them into your technical applications is a big part of being able to surface and know that you've got the right information. So this is over on the right, is what we call the preview panel. So our harvest process, which I'll show you now with AutoCAD and Civil 3D, works substantially similar, lets you produce these very high-res previews as an automated byproduct of the process. I forgot to say at the top of this call, I've got my colleague Clay Watson, who runs the customer success team. So he's going to be monitoring questions. So if throughout this, you have any questions, just make sure you pop them in, and Clay will help me navigate that after I get through yapping about all of this. This is another screenshot. We released a feature late last year called related content, and unique to the industry, but we have the ability now to make relationships between content and information. So we think that's an important part of content management. Rarely are things islands. There's usually connections between information. So you can think about, even when this information lives in different places, Avail has the ability to make relationships and you can think of it as pulling that information back to the end user. So here's an example where I've got a Revit family, but I've got, sheets that are attached to it. I've got URLs to manufacturer websites or other information that can be associated with that, all in the same interface, even though the information may live in different places. Here's another example where we've got a full sheet. These examples, these are from Revit, but a full sheet. But as you can see, in related content, an automated byproduct of our harvest process is to give you the option of attaching the individual items. So here you can see individual drafting views and schedules that make up that sheet are also available for the user as they're looking into the Avail system. And then this is actually some of what I'm going to demo live. First of all, thanks. I'm not going to say which customer gave us this, but we're always lucky. It's hard for us to get content to actually test with and ultimately to demo with. And luckily we had a customer that was helping to get us some samples as we were doing our AutoCAD and Civil 3D work, real world samples. There's nothing like the dev team always wants real world examples to be able to test against. But I'm going to be showing you this stuff live. What I wanted to show in this is, again, not only are you seeing high-res previews, but in the latest release of our Harvest product, all of this content is now fully text searchable too, as a byproduct of our harvest process. So it just makes all of this information much easier to put your hands on, and how you can search for information inside the system. So before I do the demo, let me just give a high level about when we talk about harvest, what this is. So ultimately, what we have called harvest for Revit, now we have harvest for AutoCAD and Civil 3D. And the idea is that a lot of times your information that you're ultimately trying to get out to people is managed in a single, a lot of times, project file. So in Revit language, it would be an RVT project file. A lot of our customers call them container libraries or warehouse files, but there'll be a large one project file or multiple project files that have a lot of content or data in it. And that's not only where you're managing it, but that's where people are consuming it. So a lot of what we think about is the publishing side and the consumption side. And what Harvest does is lets you continue to maintain things in these container files, but ultimately make it much more accessible by on the consumption side, by abstracting that data away from that central file, so it's easier for people to find and consume. So the harvest lets you continue, like I used to, when we first introduced some of this, I would say it's a way of letting you have your cake and eat it too. What's good for the publisher is usually not good for the consumer, or vice versa. More work to split this stuff up. So in a way, you can think about harvest letting you continue to use these container files, but making all of that data abstracted from that, what's often cumbersome to consume from file, so that everybody can find the information and use it. So this harvest process lets you publish information at your choosing from these container files. And then ultimately for the end user, as I'll show you inside of AVAIL, it's all searchable. Each item is individually, you can see it. You can see these high-res previews of it. Just makes it much easier for everyone involved. So just the quick history, we've been working on versions of this harvest for Revit for quite a while. We introduced when we first introduced the AVAIL platform product, Harvest was there within months of us introducing that. And as an example, inside of Revit, we've over time, we started out with just families and mainly trying to get drafting views out of RVT files, but added sheets and system families and groups. Basically, everything that's not a family in Revit language is difficult because it has to be stored in an RVT file. In 2021, we did the second kind of major upgrade to that Harvest platform tools. We added some new element types to support view templates. Materials were added. We have we what I mean by enabled element level containers. When we first started, we were trying to let people continue to consume the data out of that container library. What we found was those container libraries, whether they're in Revit or in AutoCAD, grow over time and they become very cumbersome actually to just pull individual items out of. So we moved in 2021 to a method of we got to get that data for consumption abstracted out of that container file so it's much easier to digest. Sometimes that's because you want to do hosting cloud and you just don't want, you don't want a 200 meg Revit file coming down or having to be pulled down every time that there was a change. But several reasons why we moved in that direction. And then this past year, we updated Harvest 3.0 for Revit, and then we were working simultaneously on this AutoCAD and Civil 3D. So we're taking a lot of what we learned on the Revit side, but we integrated our plugin in Revit into our Project Navigator interface. We added full text search of those details, and as you can see, we've added support now Harvest for AutoCAD, Civil 3D, block support, and I'll show you what we're doing on the pipe catalog support for Civil 3D. All right, so before I start, Clay, any questions or anything yet?
Nope, not so far.
All right, let me switch now over. Let me start with AutoCAD. All right. So I've got, this is what we would call a container library. These are a bunch of blocks that, like I said, one of our customers shared with us. So what I will say is that I know that some people don't use blocks necessarily, but that's where we've started with this is to actually use the block as to understand the object inside of this AutoCAD file, this DWG file. But in the future, we may like to get some feedback, but we may, I think what we're going to end up doing is letting this processing happen on individual DWGs that might just be sitting on your network as well. But at least what we have today is to help get these blocks out of these container libraries into a form. And that's what I'm going to show you today. So I've got this drawing opened up. I'm going to after you've installed our new add-in, it'll show up in the add-ins, and here you can see Avail. So a couple of things, just high level. We've developed this. This is using the same kind of palette, so everybody, it's dockable. You can dock it, move it around at will. Couple of things that you'll see. One is we've actually integrated a browser inside of this add-in. So what you're seeing here, these are what we call channels inside of Avail. I'm going to give you a demo of searching and browsing and bringing things in and out of this. And that's a little bit unique in that in the Revit world, we kind of went away from putting browsers inside of the plugins that were in there and moved to our desktop application. You can still launch your desktop application. Let me get that launched here with a single button click. So, but there are some advantages to being able to do some of this from within a browser right inside of the application. I'll get that launched here in a second and show you. But what I'll show you is that we actually don't need to be able to open up the desktop to be able to do some of these things. So let me just open up a new drawing, a blank drawing, and show you kind of what the end user's experience would be. So once you've decided and published your information, we'll get into what the harvest process looks like here in a minute, but these channels that you've decided to put your data in will show up. So I'm just going to start with these Civil 3D blocks. So here you can see the individual blocks. These are searchable, not only by the name, but as I said, they're all fully text searchable too. So I can see a block, find it. There's different sort mechanisms by the name or what's relevant from the search engine. And then ultimately, you can just drag and drop that over into your drawing and place it. I'm going to show you some options in the publishing. We actually can explode this stuff, or you can do that from the publishing side to say you want to explode it on placement. But this will, right, in this example, they're coming in and maintaining themselves as a block as they come into the drawing. But I can go back home. I can see these channels. I can search across all of those channels. So this is what we would call global search, but it's searching across all of those channels. I've got the same details in another channel that I'll show you here in a second. So the difference, if I go to this other version of those details, in this example, I've decided to publish the blocks with prompts. So placement, scale, rotation, and option to explode. We can actually, I'll show you when we get into the harvest where that can be set. But for this content, when I bring it in and place it, you can see that it's acting differently. It didn't just plop the block in there. It's asking me for that scale. So I'm just going to hit enter once the rotation, and I didn't have to do anything, but it exploded that on placement. So all of the things that are over here on the right that you're probably used to that are user controlled, we've actually put those capabilities in the publish side so that as you push that out, that we're basically doing these actions on a per piece of content basis. So you're choosing, you can decide what's the best way to publish your content. I'll just show you a couple of other examples. These were some, this is over 1,100 details. This is like a signage, that might be used in Civil 3D for road planning. But this is again searchable. So if I type the word hospital, I'm going to find the word. We're doing OCR basically on all of this as well. So is there a library? Is there a bike? So here's signage with bikes, either tagged or found it in the text. So, and again, drag and drop for placement. So our goal is to make this easy for people to find, hopefully better experience than especially for these large libraries of content. The other thing I'll say about this is, Avail at its core is is designed to be a command and control, so you can think about centralizing these assets and then pushing them out to everybody's desktop in these applications for use. When you're consuming from this, we are always pulling from the single source of truth. So if one of these assets got updated centrally, I'm always pulling the latest version. So it's an important part of the workflow to make sure that you're getting people with the latest information. I'll also for those of you new to Avail, you can either leave all the content in your own network, on your own network storage locations, or you can see this little cloud icon that I can actually, in these examples, these are hosted in our cloud, so you can just download those and place them from our cloud location. So it's that easy to use, to find. All right, so that's kind of the basics of placing content. On the harvest side, I'm going to switch back over to where I had all of these block details in here. And now over here on the left, harvesting and the ability to harvest is what we would call a publisher privilege. So not everybody would see this or be able to do this. This is a set of tools that are turned on for those that you've decided they're going to do that part of the work to get this content prep. But if I go into harvest mode, what you're going to see is that we're going to display all of the blocks that are in this current drawing that are available to be harvested. So, and deciding to harvest something is as simple as clicking on it to add it to a queue. So we have a queue, and then you basically run this process on it. I'm not going to do it now. The other piece of this is there's a setup button. So for every drawing, there's an output channel of where in Avail you want this to show up. There's an output location. So if you're writing this stuff to your network, where do you want those individual blocks to be stored? And then there's some options that I was describing. The general output is, what I would call paper space. It's black on white, but you can actually kind of publish this stuff if you want to with your kind of model space, preserving drawing colors for your preview images if you want. And then, as I was suggesting on those blocks, same as over here that you'll get with your block palette options. Do you want to attach to the content prompt for scale, prompt for rotation, and do you want to explode it on insert? So those are all for you to choose. You can, when the first example I gave, these were turned off because the block maintained its properties and just came in and got placed. If you want to give the option of scaling, rotation, and or exploding it after it's been so the user doesn't have to, then you can actually choose that. And we're writing that metadata around the content so that when it comes in, the plugin does all that for you. So that's the basics kind of for the setup. And then you can queue all of this data up. I'll actually just queue up a couple of these and say run. And that's all there is to it. Depending on how many there are, you let this sit here and run. It does all of that. It creates the high resolution preview images. It publishes all of that into Avail. It does all the OCR processing. So it's basically hit run and forget. And that should be, if you've got nice blocks already formed, that should be all the work that you have to do. Okay, let me stop for a second and see if there's any other questions before we go on to Civil 3D.
Sorry, that is a question. Is this presentation similar to the July 30th one? So a little different from what we had talked about before. Do you want to answer that?
Should be substantially similar. Yeah. Not much has changed since then.
Great.
Except that the software is available if you're a customer.
We got another one. Is there a good way to tag details during a harvest?
Well, we automatically do OCR on that. So anything that's text-based in there becomes fully text searchable. We do pick up attributes or have the option to pick up attributes from the files themselves as tags. So, and this is we're in what we call preview mode right now. So as our customers start using it, part of us is understanding what metadata, what data would you want to come in as tags, and can we touch it and in that harvest process grab it? So we are able to grab attributes, and as I said, we're doing full text search on those assets now as well. Anything else on that?
That's it.
All right. I'm going to switch over now to, hold on. I'm going to switch over now to Civil 3D just for a second and show you. So substantially similar plugin's going to look exactly the same, all searchable, drag and drop into your Civil 3D. What I wanted to show you was that, and you can harvest from Civil 3D as well. So same core set of features from that standpoint. What you will see though is that there is another tab that's available in Civil 3D. Right now we've got that called catalogs. I think we're going to end up changing the name after a couple of conversations with customers to be network catalogs. But for those of you that are familiar with Civil 3D, there are pipe network catalogs and pressure network catalogs. We have tackled the pipe network catalogs first because these function differently. But if I click on the pipe network catalog, this dialog that popped up on my other screen, here we go, is what you're used to seeing. And basically, you have to navigate on the network to know where those catalogs live. And then once you've hit the location, those are a bunch of kind of loose files that are sitting out that define these. Then you can actually choose both your pipe catalog, structure catalog in this dialog. We started working on this because we had a customer of ours that was saying that these sometimes get uh, uh, wiped out, or the settings not set for individual users for whatever reason. And because they're not used to having to find this content or even know where it is on the network, they have to know where it is on the network and go root back around to find that. So we tackled looking at this as if it was content, or we can think about settings as content. So now what we've done is one, if you're publisher, you have the ability to create these. So if I open up this dialog, this top part is exactly basically what you saw in that other menu. Where does this live on the network? What's the pipe catalog and what's the structure catalog? You can just set those. And then you can give them a name and a description, which becomes searchable. But once you've done that, then we basically present that. So you can create these and basically push out through the AVAIL interface these settings. For the end users, then, loading those things is merely clicking on it. For some reason, this is a little slow on my machine. We're trying to figure out why on my computer this takes 4 or 5 seconds for that. And these are capabilities that are not available through the Civil 3D or AutoCAD APIs. So we actually had to figure out there's a bunch of registry settings and a bunch of stuff that's going on behind the scenes to actually set these things. We've got that cracked. And now, if I want to load, I can either just double click on one of these or hit that load button, but basically just flip between catalogs. So now you can think about, as you set these up, you're pushing that out just like other content. And now your users, rather than having to go through that interface, can always just click on this. If you ever moved these or wanted to move them on your network, this is a great example of the next day people come in, they shouldn't know or care. They can just click on which one they want to load, and you've basically redefined where that stuff resides and how you want to publish those. So we're getting, we have some customers that say, look, we might have a handful of these. It's kind of obviously kind of convenient. A lot of people we've talked to said that they've written their own scripts or plugins to try to go set this stuff. We've also talked to people that said that you can end up, if you've got a lot of customers that have very specific network catalogs that need to be set, you may have dozens and dozens of these. So anyway, we've added this capability. I'm sure over time we'll learn a lot and mature it, but this is, at least for the pipe network catalogs, this is now a feature of this release cycle. We will likely start working on the pressure network catalog. That data is actually in a SQL database, so it's going to be different for us to be able to get to the data and figure out how to make that work as well. But we started out with these pipe network catalogs, and that's now a feature here. I saw maybe a couple of questions come in.
Yes, one of them came through from Eddie. So this feature essentially sets the path and adjusts the registry settings for the pipe catalog.
It does all of that, right? So you can basically set that up, push it out, and we just make it easy for the end user to just click. So, and you can, if you'll notice when I publish those, I can choose the specific. Let me get this dialog back up. I can choose the specific pipe catalog, structure catalog setting. So if there's multiple of those, which some of them have, you can end up publishing those as individual, basically, references in here, and they can just use this interface to click instead of having to go through, pop that up and go through those pull down menus. So should make it easier to maintain, easier to consume. That's our life. Easier to publish, keep everybody up to date, and ease the consumption of this data.
Cool. Next question from Daniel. Is there a CUI loaded when installing the plugin? If not, what is the best way to add the palette to a custom profile / workspace?
That's a good question. I'm not sure I even know how to answer it. You know, the AutoCAD and Civil 3D AutoCAD development, I'd say, is new to us. We had a version of a plugin a few years ago, and we kind of stopped or halted kind of development on it in lieu of using our desktop for most of this. But yeah, it's a good question. When you install, I'm sure it can be done. I'm sure that we can, figure out. So we just may need some feedback from you all, or if you already know when a plugin is installed, how to set that up for distribution.
Cool. And the last comment was a shout out that they love this feature. So, yeah.
Well, good. So with that, what I'll say, let me go back to our, can I get our slides back here? So our goal, just kind of wrap this up for the AutoCAD and Civil 3D, was, back to single source of truth. Always make sure you've got the current content that everybody should be consuming. Centralize that distribution, right? So especially for larger firms where you're trying to get this out through AVAIL, you're always looking at the latest information and everybody's consuming from that. And ultimately, right, where's the payoff? Can we reduce either redoing things that they couldn't find info on, causes rework, causes QA/QC problems over time? That's ultimately our goal and what we're trying to do with this. So somebody was asking earlier, we did a webinar back at the very end of July. The product was not available yet, but it is now. So we finished all the core features in Q3, and we, about the middle of August, released this into what we call preview mode, which for us is, hey, this can go into, we're putting it in our language into production, but we're telling people, hey, this is in preview mode. I don't know if you want to widely distribute this, but you can start testing it. Should do no harm in your environment. And then we do a final feedback loop and either try to fix any last minute bugs that are found and or features that are surfaced that are needed as we kind of learn by getting it into customers' hands. So we're currently in that preview release period. And so customers can go to the admin portal and go to the preview section and download this software and actually test it in your own environment. And our anticipation is that we'll finish that up. We're going to be at Autodesk University next week. We'll be down in Nashville showing this stuff off and talking to folks, and then, get back from that and probably, early October, barring any major problems, that this will go in what we call production or release cycle. And like I said, we're focused on ultimately trying to make these AEC production teams faster. We've done a lot of work over the years for those of you that know us on the Revit side and tackled a lot of problems, and now we're having fun digging in and learning about what problems we can help solve on the AutoCAD and Civil 3D side. So love to have more and more of those conversations. For those of you, if you're not a customer and want to talk about becoming a customer and or kicking the tires of this, we would need to set you up in what we call promo accounts. So if you want to get in, if you're interested in that, not a customer, you can reach out to the email address. This is Will Rouse. Will's usually on these calls. He's probably busy this afternoon, but you can email wrouse@getavail.com. Oh, there he is. I just didn't see him. He's actually here. So Will can, if you're not a customer, you can talk to Will and he can get you set up so that you could do your own testing with this as well. So, all right. Anything else, Clay?
Nothing else. Yeah, just a thank you that came through, but no other questions.
All right. Thanks, everybody. For those of you that'll be down in Nashville, look for us. We've got a little small booth on the floor. We can show you some more goodies that we've been working on, and then look forward to seeing everybody. Thanks.